Okay, welcome back, guys and gals. So next we're going to make this part here. Now I think the best way to do this would be to make it, because as you can see it kind of angles in, it tapers in at the top here and then goes out. Yeah, as you can see over here, it definitely does that. It's thinner than up here than it is down there. So we'll make it, and then we'll just, I mean, we could use like a lattice or something like that to scale it in, but that will have disproportional results. And the lattice in Blender is it's not the same as 3ds Max where it actually applies it to the object directly. You know, you can just right click, whatever, you can just apply a lattice to it, FFD modifier to it, and it will apply it to the actual object itself. But with Blender you have to put down a cube and then move it around and all that stuff, and I find that not to be 100% accurate. So we're just gonna, for this particular case, manually scale in one side, probably mirror it over. So let's just get right to it, shall we? So, and this is why, as you can see, I've actually enabled the input commands as well for you guys so that you can see what I'm doing better. So press number 7 on numpad. Yep. That's the reason that we rotated this Firepit to be at this angle, so that we can now make things on this straight angle, then rotate it around. Rather than trying to make it on this angle, which will be really difficult to do, we can create it on a straight angle and then just rotate it around. So let's get to it. Right. So let's see how we're going to do this. I think what I'll do, I won't start out with a box. I think what I'll do is I will come into here, into edit mode, press number 3 for face, shift D, right click, P to separate it, then come out of edit mode. So what I did there was, just to recap, was I clicked on this face, pressed shift and D to duplicate it, right click to instantly keep it in place, pressed P to separate it, and then come out of edit mode. Now pressing tab, and we're going to select this face. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to make one half, the mirror over, and then do it like that. So we need to scale this in on the x-axis. So S, X. Okay, as you can see, it's not. We need to put the pivot point for this geometry to the center of it. That's why it was not scaling, you know, like we want it to do. So right click on it, set origin, origin to geometry. Now if we go to scale and X, normal, sorry, come up here and turn off normal back to global. My mistake, sorry. Scale X, it's still doing it, which is very peculiar behavior. That's a very strange behavior. But as I said, you know, the trials and tribulations. Let's just reset location. No. Scale. Rotation. It's just peculiar. But what we're going to do is go into edit mode. 3A. Scale X. There we go. Let's do it in edit mode. Scale X. And as I said, we're just going to do one side. So press 1. Actually, what I want to do is clear these edges if possible. So 2. Select that one. Hold on Shift. Select that one. Right click. Clear seam. Right click. Clear sharp. 1 for vertice. A. Control E. Clear seam. Control E. Clear sharp. Control E. Clear sharp from vertices. I don't see. This is one thing that I don't understand about Blender. You know, even though you tell it to clear the seams and such, it doesn't do it sometimes, and I'm still trying to understand why it does that. Because as you just saw, I actually cleared the seams. Actually, I think I know why. Let's try this. There we go. up here it's because the mean bevel weight is at 1. So if we turn this down to 0, that should clear them. So that's why it wasn't doing it. See, I'm remembering things because I had this problem yesterday. If you remember, no, I didn't. I was in the process of making the tutorial and I had a problem, so I had to restart it because I had to figure it out. So yeah, I was having this problem yesterday where the seams wouldn't clear, and it's because I had the mean bevel still set to 1. Anyway, let's go in here and press number 1 for vertices, and we're going to move these to the center on the X. So come up here, X, 0. Okay, set these ones. Actually, Control A, scale. Control A, scale Z. Scale them down. Let's see how far they actually come up. So it's actually pretty thin. So we're going to scale it to make it pretty thin. Scale Z to about, I'm going to say about there. I don't want it to be any thinner than that. I want it to have a bit of weight to it. So it actually comes in quite close to the center. So GX, move it into about there. And we can always, you know, adjust the width of it once we're done. So what I want to do now is grab this edge here, and what we're going to do is we're going to start extruding it outwards, and we're going to do it to make this curve here. So we're going to extrude it and then rotate things, and then yeah. So go into the right view by pressing 3 on the numpad. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to add a torus to make the curve better fit the torus, and then we're going to taper it inwards. So E, bring that to about there, E, rotate, E for extrude, R for rotate, E for extrude. Don't need to add too many, we can always add more edges after. R to rotate, E, R, E. I start to sound like a blooming pirate. R, E, R. There we go. Now if you look, that's actually way too, actually it does sit above it, doesn't it? So that's kind of accurate. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come back in here and we're just going to move the vertices around. So for example, let's just move these. So select your vertices. And we want them to be roughly a nice, like you don't want these sort of angles, you don't want something like that because that looks weird. You know, to make sure that your quads, which is, this is obviously a quad here, make sure that there is a proportional decent amount of space between the vertices, and make sure that the edges aren't, they don't look ski-whiffed and weird. So that, I'm going to bring this down to about there. I want these to be the same height, so select them, scale S on the Z-axis 0. Okay, and then G to move it about there. Now I can already probably tell that this is kind of too thick in places. So simple, we just come over here, move these around a little bit, and what we're going to do a nifty little thing in a minute, so that we can, what I want to do actually is pull this up to about there, Control R to add another edge in there, right click to finalize it, G, maybe pull this in a little bit like that. We're just trying to keep things neat and tidy, you know, trying to keep an equal distance between all these edges, keep a nice equal distance. It's not important, but it just makes things look kind of nice and tidy. Maybe pull this over a little bit. Whenever you're starting a curve like this, make sure that these edges are angled outwards or inwards, you know, depending on which direction. I think that'll do. Now what we can do is, if we come up to edit preferences, and I think it's called loop, type in loop and then enable loop tools like that. And what that'll do is, so come on to preferences and add-ons, type in loop, enable mesh loop tools. And basically what that's going to do is it will take this, if we hold down shift and we select these vertices, like so, then we right click, loop tools, and then relax. Do the same for these ones. Right click, loop tools, and relax. As you can see, it's made a much nicer, much cleaner result for our curve. Okay. And what we can do is we can press 3 on the keyboard. X, F to delete that face. Let me see, because I think that might be a bit too big. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to add in a... Actually, what we'll do first of all is we'll mirror it over. Or will we? Because let's add in a torus first. So I want to set our cursor to this orange dot here. So come out of edit mode, and then Shift S, cursor to selected. Okay, and then press Shift. I don't know what I'm telling you to do, but it's just habit, you know. Shift A, mesh, torus. It's way too big. So let's just in that minor radius. Need to be about like that. So turn the minor radius down, because if you notice this is quite thin. So turn it down till it's quite thin. That's okay for me. Okay. Right click it, shade smooth. Now we want to rotate it on the X, I think it is, RX90. Okay, press enter. And we want to scale it down. So come out here, scale it down. About, make it a bit bigger, something like that. Because if you notice, these are actually quite large. So scale it out a bit more, about there. Okay. And they come out to about roughly, so press number 3 on the keypad, bring it out to about there, I'd say. Like that. Now if I could change one thing about this torus, it would be that it's not as thin. But I don't think you can come and change it now, so that's one thing that I would go back and change. But I don't think I can do that now, so yeah, that's a bit of a boo-boo, but you know, it's trial and error, isn't it? You know, if you guys aren't happy with the size of the torus, then just make a new one and just, you know, make sure that it's not as thin as this one. In fact, let's do that, because I don't want to seem like I'm cheating you guys. So let's do that. Shift A, mesh, torus. So it's kept our original size. So let's turn this to about 0.20. Something that's quite bulky. Maybe 0.25. That'll do. That's pretty cool. Right. Shade smooth. So I've gone with 0.25. RX90. Enter. Scale to bring it down. Sorry about that, guys. It's just I didn't want to feel as though I was cheating you guys by saying, "Oh yeah, I didn't do it," but if you guys want to go back and do it, you know, I don't believe that things should be that way. Okay, put it in there. Okay, maybe scale it down a bit more. GZ to move it up, and that's okay. So now we've got something better to work with. And as you can see, they kind of angle in a little bit. So 3 on there for right view, rotate it in a little bit like that. G, move it to about there, like that. Okay, that's a bit better, isn't it? That's about right. So now what we need to do is we want this curve to hug this a bit better. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to come in here. Let's actually just name this to, press F2 and call it hoop. Let's call it handle, because that's what it is. It's a handle for moving it. Okay, so come back in here, number 3. And we're just going to move these vertices around. So press tab, 1, and we're just going to move these vertices around a bit more. So G, that's why I added the hoop in now, so that we can get better sizing, rather than, you know, edit everything and change the sizes and, you know, add a mirror modifier. Do all this first and then do those things, so that we can and again, we can just come in and use our loop tools to add a nice curve. Maybe add another curve in there, make it a bit smoother looking. Bring this one in a little bit like that. Bring this down. I'd say that's pretty good. I mean, it could do with being a little bit closer, but I'm trying to keep it as accurate to this as possible, because if you notice, it actually goes above it, but I think I can just move this entire thing up. So I'm going to select this and this, G, Z, move it up to about there. There we go. That'll do. So let's come back in here and continue to work on this little handle. Alt Z, press tab for edit mode, come in and just move these around. Because if you notice, this part does dip down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this in to about there, press Control R, right click to finish it, GZ, bring that down, and I think bring these in a little bit more to be closer to this hoop. Sorry, handle. G, G. It's about just going around and maybe scale these in a bit. Maybe scale these in a bit as well. Just going around and making sure that this hoop pretty much just fits inside this realistically and kind of snugly, in a snug kind of way. I'm not happy with the spacing between these two, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap GG to constrain it to the axis. So select these vertices, and we want to constrain these vertices to this axis, so press G and then G again, and that'll bring it down like that. There we go, that looks a lot nicer, doesn't it? Maybe GG down to there, GG it's about there. Maybe pull this out a bit, like that. There we go. Just move these vertices around and keep two things in mind. These edges should, wherever possible, roughly be the same. You know, the gap between these edges should be roughly the same all around. Nice even distribution, and the same here. Keep these gaps, keep the distance between these edges roughly the same as well. Because that means you're going to get nice distribution of quads. I mean, for this sort of thing, it's not super important because it's not a high poly. But yeah, Alt Z, come out of there. Okay. Now what I want to do is just come back into edit mode, 2 on the keyboard, and we're just going to go around and select this face, so these edges, hold on Shift Alt, select this as well. Okay, select that one. We don't need to select this face here. And then we're going to go ahead and extrude it to the center. So extrude, sorry, EX, so extrude on the x-axis. Let's move it out there somewhere. And then we're just going to press, come up here and put it on the 0, like that. Now that we've done that, you can see that our normals have been flipped. So if we press 3, so press 3 on the keyboard, press A, Alt and N, and then F for flip normals. Okay, now if I mirror this over, you're going to see that it's way too thick, but we're going to taper it inwards, possibly using the proportional editing. I don't know yet. We'll see when we get there. So let's just add come out of edit mode and add a mirror modifier. Let's just delete this bevel modifier actually. Mirror modifier. There we go. So I mean that looks kind of accurate to this. I mean it does look a little bit smaller. But that's okay. What we can do is we can just go into 7 for top view, edit mode, 1 for vertex mode, Alt Z for X-ray mode, G, and we want to move it on the x-axis. So GX, bring it in to about there. Okay, someone's got a nice little mortar back outside. Okay, come out of edit mode, and that's about right, I'd say. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to start incrementally moving these vertices inwards. So we need to incrementally start pushing these vertices inwards at a nice tapered angle. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to see what happens if I use this proportional editing option. So I'm going to do that. G, bring our radius down by using the middle mouse button, and we want to move it on the x-axis. So bring it in. Okay, maybe a bit bigger than that. So GX. No, it's not going to work. I didn't think it was going to work because. Okay, that's fine. All we've got to do is just do it manually. So GX. Turn it off. Press O to turn it off again. GX. Bring it in. It's about there. Same here. GX. GX. And basically, if we go into the top view, we want to make a nice sort of fan sort of taper effect. So set these ones. GX. Okay. GX. I mean, the reason that I'm doing this again is because I noticed that they weren't going in quite far enough. GX. GX. If you notice, we're just sort of fanning it outwards. GX. GX. This needs to come in a lot more. Actually, what I want to do is actually go and press Control I. So make sure this is selected, press Control I, and then press H. Okay, just to make sure that we're actually only focusing on this. Okay. So GX brings in a bit as well. So we're just getting this sort of shape, you know. Make sure that everything's nicely Alt Z, select this one. And what we're going to do for this one is we're just going to gently nudge it in. So GX and then use the arrow keys to gently nudge it in. Daisy. GX arrow keys to move it in. Press enter. Select this one. GX arrow keys. Oops daisy. Make sure that you actually have X-ray mode turned on. GX, otherwise the back vertices won't be selected. Press enter. Okay. Alt Z, let's see how that looks. What I might do is push some of these in, even though it doesn't seem to do that on here. So what I'll do is I'll go into I'll press Control 1 like that. Okay. Just to make sure that this is nice, so that there's no little vertices just sticking out like that. So click on this vertex here, GX, nudge it in, press enter. GX, nudge it in. Okay. Alt Z, select this one here. Alt Z again. GX, nudge it in. Like that. It's easy. GX, nudge it in. Press enter. GX, nudge it in. Press enter. And it's just about just doing that, just going around, and if anything looks abnormal like this, I don't like this one here for example, GX, push it in a couple of times, press enter. Just go around, and if anything looks kind of abnormal to you, like something doesn't quite look right, something sticks out too much, select it and then just use the arrow keys to incrementally move it in. Now what I want to do now is come out of this, because that looks kind of nice, but right click, shade, smooth it. Let's see actually. 2A. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply this mirror modifier. Apply the mirror modifier. Come in here and add a bevel modifier to it like that. And we're going to bring this down to about, we don't want it to be too much. Something like that will do. Maybe give it 2 segments here. 2. That's nice, isn't it? Okay. Now we only want it to be on certain edges. We don't want these edges to be affected. Again, so non-weight. Come back into here, and then we're just going to go around here and hold Alt, Shift Alt. Come over here as well. Shift Alt, Shift Alt. Shift Alt, Shift Alt. And we're going to give these a mean bevel weight of, let's say, 0.9. Come out of this mode. Let's do geometry, hard normals. I'm not sure why this particular edge here is doing that. I'm not entirely sure why. The joys of trying to figure things out. Okay, so there's no reason for it to be doing that. Shade smooth. I don't know why it's doing that, to be honest with you. Let's go ahead and go back into edit mode number 2. X dissolve edges. Probably because there's not enough geometry to hold it. So what we can do, even though I don't want this to be a high poly model, we can go ahead and apply our bevel, add modifier, subdivision surface to, there we go. Now it looks nicer, doesn't it? Okay, right. So we need to obviously sort out this little edge here. So come into edit mode, and we're going to add some loops inside here and some there. So Control R, bring that about to about there. I'm just keeping an eye on this edge at the bottom. If you look at the bottom left of the model, I'm keeping an eye on that edge because it's a bit hard to see this one. Over there, same here. So when I say that I'm actually keeping an eye on this edge here. I'm keeping an eye on the orange edge as I slide it down here rather than in here, because it's harder to see in here. Control R, bring it in to about there. We're going to add another one here now. Control R, bring this down to about there. Come out of edit mode. See, we've still got this little thing going on here, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've got shadow turned on. No, cavity. It's still showing these, and I don't know why. It's very peculiar that it's doing that. Let's see, clear sharp. Oh, maybe that's why. Clear sharp. Yeah, that's why. Because the sharps were, it still had sharps on it apparently, even though they weren't showing up. Clear sharp. Come on, that mode. See, now it's still going to do that because, but the best thing I can do is go back into edit mode. Press Control. Sorry, if I press A, right click, clear the sharps. There we go. So we just needed to clear the sharps from our bevel. So if that was happening for you, go into edit mode, go into edge mode, press A to select all the edges, right click, and then clear sharps. Because we needed those sharps for our bevel. So that's what we need to do for that one. Maybe I can bring this down now to about maybe 1. You can keep that at 2 if you want. I mean, 2 seems pretty cool to me. It seems pretty nice. Okay, now we'll just go to Alt and H to unhide everything. See how that looks. That's pretty cool. We had a bit of trials and tribulations on the way. You know, we had to figure some things out, but that's why I'm making these things live, so that you guys can see that, you know, I do make mistakes and I do have to figure things out, especially since I'm moderately new to Blender. And but anyway, to finish up, we're going to join these two together, and we're going to mirror it 3 other times. So click on this, hold down Shift. Actually, let's just apply our subdivision. Click on this, Control J. Now we need our geometry to mirror it around the center. So first of all, Shift S, cursor towards origin. Right click on this, set origin to 3D cursor. Control A, rotation, Control A, scale, Control A, location. Okay. Now what I want to do actually is push this in a little bit. So G, X? No, sorry. G, Y. Push it in a little bit like that. There we go. Okay. So now that we've done that, let us go ahead and mirror this. Actually, let's reset our location. Okay. Top view by pressing number 7. And then we're going to go ahead and add modify mirror Y. Okay. And then we're going to apply our little mirror modifier. R, hold down Control, rotate it. Sorry, my mistake. Press Shift D, right click, R, hold down Control, 90 degrees. Okay, there we go. So that's looking pretty cool so far. Now, me, for example, if I was making this for Second Life, just a bit of a side thought, if I was making this for Second Life, I would add a script so that this would incrementally go down, so that there would be a different mesh that would appear every half an hour or something, so that it went down incrementally. But that's just a side thought for a bit of realism. Okay, so that'll do it for this part. This was a particularly long part, but I thought it might be. Next parts won't be as... I think this is probably the hardest part of the entire model. Yeah, that was definitely the hardest part. Not the hardest part, but the most time-consuming part. So yeah, thank you for watching this, guys. I've really enjoyed making this particular part. So far, this and this have been my favourite parts to make. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next part.